In this video, we are going to make a simple timesheet in Excel with the date, the weekday, the time in, the lunch break, the time out. We can also have the total to calculate all the values, the addition of the values for the worked hours, the regular wage, the overtime payment, and also the total payment. And here to the left, we have some settings that we can change, and the entire timesheet is going to be automatically updated for us dynamically. We have regular working hours. My working sheet is setting with 8 hours, but you can also change 8 to another number. If you change the criteria dynamically, the entire worksheet is going to change for you. We also have here the hourly rate, that is basically the hourly wage, and also the overtime rate that I'm considering here 1.5 times the hourly rate. So let's say in a certain day, instead of working the regular hours, that is 8, that is the number that I'm considering here, you just work it 10 hours. That way, from these 10 hours, you're going to receive 8 regular hourly rate and 2 overtime rate, following the criteria that we did set right here. So let's take a look in a practical way. How can we create this simple and very efficient timesheet in Excel? Let's go. The first thing that I want to start with is with the settings of the timesheet. So let's say the first criteria that is very important to me is the regular working hours. And let's say normally I work 8 hours a day, or you can actually use different hours such as 12 or 6 or whatever. The important thing is whenever you update those values, the entire worksheet is going to be updated for you dynamically. Now let's move on to the second criteria that is very important, is the hourly rate. And the hourly rate is basically, in other words, the wage per hour. Let's use $40. Let me go back to the 40 and then go to the home tab and change to a dollar currency. Okay. Now the third and last criteria that I can use here maybe can be the overtime rate. Let's say in a certain day, instead of working only the 8 hours, that is the regular working hours, you just work it 12 hours. So you have 4 extra hours. You have 4 hours as overtime. So instead of receiving $40 times 12, you're going to receive, let's say, $40 times 8. And you're also going to have a overtime rate to be considered above those 4 hours. So the thing that I want to consider here is equal sign 1.5. This is the factor that I want to use. However, if you want to use another criteria, you can do so. 1.5 times the hourly rate, and then enter. And as the example before, if in a certain day I just worked 12 hours, I'm going to receive $40 times 8, that is the regular hours, and then I'm gonna receive $60 times 4, and that way I'm gonna have the 12 hours worked with the overtime rate. Now with those criteria done, let me select the first 2 cells and change the colors to a yellowish one, the second criteria to a greenish one, and the third and last one to a blue one. I'm just change the highlight of those cells to make it easier to separate the criteria. Now, in between the column B and C, I can click, hold, and drag to the right to increase the width of those columns. Now, let's move on to another column to start to create our timesheet. And here I can have the date and also the weekday. That is something that is very important because there is certain people that don't work at Sundays or Saturdays or whatever. So with the weekdays, you can see exactly from a specific date what is the weekday and if you is going to work or not. So let's say start with January 1st of 2025 and then enter. What is the weekday of January 1st of 2025? Equal sign text function wants you to select, and then as the value argument I want to use the date, comma, and as the text format I want to use open quotations 4 times the letter D, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then close quotations, close parentheses, and then enter. January 1st of 2025 is equal to Wednesday. Now let's, at the bottom right corner of the cell, click, hold, and drag down to create here a sequence of the days. Okay, I think it's enough, and let's do the same thing for the function. That way we can copy this function down. Now I have all the dates and all the weekdays. Let me select both of those columns, and in between one column to another, I can click, hold, and drag to the right to increase the width of those columns. Now we're gonna have more informations such as the time in and also the time out. The time in is the time where the employee checks in the job, and the time out is when the employee leaves his job. But let's say in between the time in and the time out, maybe we have a break, that is the lunch. So I can take here the time out, click hold and extract off to the side, and that way I'm gonna have two blank columns. And in this first column, I want to have the lunch. Lunch in is the time where the lunch starts, and also the lunch out is the time where the lunch ends. Let's say someone starts to work at 9 column 00 a.m. and then enter. And he's out at 6 column 00 p.m. enter. But in between there is a break to the lunch. Let's say 12 p.m. and the lunch out is 1 p.m. and then enter. Okay. Now, how can we calculate the total worked hours and the overtime and the hourly worked payment, or and on and on? So let's start first with the first calculation, that can be the hours worked, and then we can move on to the regular wage, that is the regular payment, the overtime, and also the overtime payment and the total payment. Let's start with the hours worked. It's a simple math that we need to do here. Equal sign and then open parentheses. Let's first calculate the difference between the time out and the time in. So time out minus time in. Let's close parentheses. Now I want to subtract the difference between the lunch out minus the lunch in. So minus, open parentheses again, lunch out minus lunch in. Close parentheses and then hit enter. Okay, I have here 8 total hours worked. But as we can see, I have this AM format in the suffix of the hours. I can get rid of this format. And the simplest way to do it is just click over the cell and go to the home tab. And instead of using a custom format that Excel for some reason is using here, I can go to number. But as I go to number, I'm gonna have a decimal number instead of the hourly numbers that we are used to use. So something that I can do here to properly change the decimal number into hours is double click in the cell to open, and I'm gonna input everything in between parentheses. So immediately after the equal sign, open parentheses, and then immediately after the last parenthesis, I want to close again the parentheses, and then times 24. Hit enter. Now we have the worked hours. And something that we can also do is immediately above the header, I can have the equal sign, the sum function, to make an addition of all the values that we're gonna have here in this timesheet, and then enter. That way we can know in the ending of the month, let's say, or in the ending of the week, how many hours we worked. Now it's time to move on to the regular wage. And as we did said before, we need to use the hourly rate to be considered in the regular wage. Equal sign hours worked times the hourly rate. And something with the hourly rate that we need to be mindful is whenever we drag a formula down, all the references are also going to follow along and be moved down. So we need to lock this reference right here. And the way that I can do it is with the F4 key to append the $sign before the column and the $sign before the row. And then I can press enter. Okay, $320. This is the regular wage for this specific day. However, let's say instead of the time out be equal to 6 p.m., let's change to 8 p.m. and then enter. Now the time worked is equal to 10 hours. So something is wrong right here, because the regular wage cannot be $400 because the regular worked hours is equal to 8 hours, right? So if somebody just worked 10 hours, it's not going to be considered as regular wage. The maximum hours for the regular wage is equal to 8 hours. So I need to input this condition within the function. And how can I do it? Let me get rid of this formula and then equal sign if function to check whether or not the hours worked is a overtime, let's say. Double click 1, 2. The logical test is gonna be if the hours worked is less than or equal to 8. If it's less than or equal to 8 hours, it's because it's okay. I can indeed consider the regular wage. So, comma, if it's true, I want to consider the hours worked times the hourly rate, and then F4 key to lock the reference. Comma, if it's not true, I want to consider, let's say, if it's not less than or equal to 8, it's because it's greater than 8 hours. So I want to keep up with 8 hours. And then times the hourly rate, and again, F4 key. Close parentheses and hit enter. We're done. So it doesn't matter if somebody just worked 8 hours, it's going to receive $320. Or if someone just worked 15 hours, enter, it's going to receive the same amount. Or if somebody just worked 1 single hour, it's going to receive $40 because this is the condition for the regular wage. Everything above 8 hours is going to be considered a overtime and it's going to be included in the overtime payment. So this is what we need to do here. Let me undo the action with the Ctrl Z to just have here the correct formula. Okay. Now let's move on to the overtime. How can I calculate the overtime? Equal sign, and then I can have here the hours worked minus the regular working hours. And it's also very important to lock the reference with the F4 key to append the $sign. Hit enter. Okay, 2 hours is equal to the overtime. Now it's time to calculate the overtime payment. That is going to be a simple math. Equal sign overtime times the overtime rate. And again, F4 key to lock the last reference. Enter. Okay, so as we can see here, the regular wage is going to be $320 and the overtime payment is going to be equal to $120. And the total payment is going to be equal to the addition of all those two previous values. So this is what we need to do here right now. The last calculation, equal sign regular wage, add to the overtime payment, enter. Okay, that's it, we're done. And another thing that we can do here is, as we could see, this 10 just above the header is a addition of all the worked hours. We can also bring this formula to the right to all the columns that we have. Just click at the bottom right corner, click, hold, and drag to the right. That way we're gonna have an addition of everything. Now it's time to make something a little bit better here to separate the columns and so on. So let me select the column G up to the column J, click, hold, and drag to increase a bit. And I also can select the time in and let's say the time in and the time out and change the color to a yellowish one. The lunch in and lunch out, I can change to a, let's say, a blue one. I'm just using here some random colors. You can use another one if you want to. I want to use gray for the day and for the weekdays. And for the all calculations that we're going to have, maybe I can use a green color. Okay, and for the headers, let's make something different right here. Select everything and use a darker color and a white font and align everyone here in the middle and vertically. Okay, I think we're good. Another thing that we can do is selecting everything, all the cells, and include a borders. Okay, like this. And this is how we can create a simple timesheet in Excel. Let's use here another row with informations. Let's say in Thursday, January 2nd of 2025, my timing, my check-in is 8 a.m. and my lunch time is equal to 11 a.m. and my lunch out is equal to 12 p.m. and the time out maybe can be, let's say, 9 p.m., the day that I work at the most. Let me bring those formulas down. So select everything at the bottom right corner, click, hold, and drag down. Simple as that. That way we're gonna have a new calculation for this new row. And as we can see here above, we have the addition of all those values. That way you're gonna know specifically how many hours I worked in a specific day, but I'm also gonna know how many hours I worked on in total because I have the addition the sum function above the headers. I also have here the addition for the regular wage, the overtime, and the overtime payment, and also the total payment, as we can see right here. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video on how to create just a simple timesheet in Excel. If you have any questions or any suggestions to the next videos, let me know, comment down below, and I see you tomorrow. As every day has a new video, I see you there.